Hi there, it's Larold, and today I'm going to talk about Azerite armor, one of the biggest new features in Battle for Azeroth. Let me start off by saying that this is all alpha content, and all of it is subject to change. Anyhow, let's get to the good stuff. Azerite is the successor to artifact weapons in the Netherlight Crucible system from Legion. Every high-level character in Battle for Azeroth will wear an artifact necklace called the Heart of Azeroth. As you gain Azerite, the heart will level up, unlocking new powers within specific pieces of armor, which at this point in alpha testing is just a chest piece. The Heart of Azeroth has a couple of big quality of life improvements from Legion. First off, leveling up the Heart of Azeroth is similar to leveling an artifact weapon. You do world quests, dungeons, and raids to get Azerite, just like you did with AP. However, leveling up the heart applies to the entire class, rather than just a single spec like artifact weapons did. Also, because you don't have to choose which spec you want to use your Azerite on, the moment you gain it, it's just instantly applied to the heart. This means no more clogging up your bag space with Azerite tokens. Pretty good stuff. Now that I've covered those little important details, let's get into how the Azerite Trait system works on the alpha right now. First off, you have to make a new character to gain access to Azerite Trait gear, which is already equipped in the chest slot. To open up the Azerite interface, it's pretty simple. You just shift right click and that's it. You don't have to go to a special altar or forge or anything, you just put your point in from wherever you want. The interface for putting Azerite traits in is very simple, and it clearly says at the bottom, temporary user interface, but it's actually pretty helpful for seeing how it works. Unlike the Netherlight Crucible, which has a branching path tree, there are no links between the Azerite trait tiers. This means that the annoying Netherlight Crucible situation of having to miss out on a tier 3 trait that you really want because the tier 2 trait above it is worthless, that isn't going to happen anymore. Once you have enough Azerite levels to unlock a trait, you open up that piece of armor, choose the trait you want, and that's it. Now let's go ahead and jump into traits. At this point there doesn't seem to be any RNG in traits at all. I made 4 different warriors and every single one of them had exactly the same traits every time. For every class except for Druid and Demon Hunter, the first tier has 4 traits. Because Druid has 4 specs, they have 5 traits, and Demon Hunter only has 2 specs, so they only have 3 traits. The first trait in the first tier for every single character is Champion of Azeroth. After that, you have a unique trait that corresponds to each of your class's specs. Traits don't change if you change specs, and when you choose a trait, it is selected for all of your class's specs. So if I take a trait that only has value for Protection Warrior, I'm going to have that trait whether I'm playing Protection, Arms, or Fury. This means that while I wouldn't need to level separate artifacts for all 3 specs, I will need separate Azerite Trait armor pieces for each of them. Overall, this is kind of a step backwards from what we've seen so far in the new system, and I hope it's something that will be looked at and revised as we move through the alpha and beta. Moving on to the second trait tier, it has 3 options that are based entirely upon your class spec rolls. Every class gets Elemental Whirl, which is an RNG secondary stat proc. If your class has 2 DPS specs, you also get access to Gut Ripper, which is a pure damage proc that has an increased proc chance on targets below 30% health. If your class is a pure DPS, so Rogue, Mage, Hunter, and Warlock, your third trait is Blood Siphon, a passive increase to Mastery and Leech. If your class can be a tank, you get Winds of War, a stacking reactive dodge chance increase. If your class can be a healer, you get Woundbinder, a haste proc triggered by healing allies, with an increased chance to trigger when your allies' health is lower. Finally, there is one totally class-specific tier 2 trait, and it's for priests because they're the only class with 2 different healing specs. Priests get access to Savior, which gives them a chance to proc extra healing on targets below 35% health. Neat. Down in the third tier, you have 2 traits that are exactly the same for every class. The first is Vampiric Speed, which gives you a heal and move speed buff whenever an enemy you've recently damaged dies. The second is Resounding Protection, which gives you an Absorb Shield every 30 seconds. So basically you get to choose between Bear Tartar and Paridas. In the fourth and final tier, you get to choose from exactly 1 trait. Not much of a choice, really. It's called Azerite Empowered, and it grants a piece of gear a 5 item level increase. Boring but effective. Well, I think that about covers it. My biggest issue with this system right now is that it's taking 2 steps forward and 1 step back when it comes to rewarding players who want to play all of their class's specs. This is a good feature preview so far, but I hope that different specs will be able to make different choices within the same piece of armor, and that we'll see more variety and spec-specific goodness in the Azerite Trait system soon. Stay tuned for more great BFA Alpha content, and as always, please like and subscribe. It makes us feel good. Thanks for watching. Bye!